So we're talking about the next A24 flick to grace our screens here. We're talking about Men.
Why are you doing that?
What are you?
Men. Alex Garland. This is the second time. I don't think Annihilation was A24, but
I don't think so.
yeah. So this would be the second collaboration with them. But anyway, we're definitely in this age of a pretty popular term. I think Scream, really, the latest Scream movie kind of pushed this forward a lot. But
They
elevated horror. And that is what A24, I would say, is responsible for pioneering. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like, anytime anyone just mentions elevated horror, the A24 logo kind of just pops up into my head because when you kind of look at a lot of that crazy off the wall avant-garde kind of horror, it is always A24. And I'm sure there are a couple other companies out there that have done things like that, but I would double down on almost saying that those companies have been inspired by a lot of A24 stuff because I think they were really the first one to kind of take that leap and to be like, okay, let's do something different here. Let's do something new. Let's add a different element to horror. So yeah, I would say A24 is pretty responsible for elevated horror in 2022.
Yeah, I mean, like that's they kind of really kicked things off, and like they brought us things like The Witch. I know was early on for them. That was one of the ones that really started to stick out in people's minds. I think when it comes to
That's
that
what I think
term.
of.
Exactly, because that was like kind of the first. I'm not even gonna say it was the first because I think they had a couple horror films before that, but like that's the one that I know really struck a chord with people. And it's just one of these things where it's like this movie kind of walks a line, and I think it walks it. Just to kind of get into my thoughts on the film, um, walks it very sloppily. So when we decide to dive into it a little bit more here in a second, but I I think is it getting to the point though in 2022 where the term elevated horror, I guess after now that it's been brought into something as big as the Scream franchise and they've kind of poked fun at it a little bit, is it starting to get a little oversaturated with everything? Like is it going to get that Marvel effect here soon where people are always really sick of Marvel movies? Are people going to be craving simpler horror again, simpler things like slashers and stuff? Or do you think that this is here to stay for a little while longer?
I think it's going to be here to stay for a while. Just because, in a sense, most of those audiences that are craving elevated horror and see something with an A24 logo. I mean, you look at the Men trailer and A24 pops up almost immediately. So it's like as soon
Always.
as you see that logo, you know what you're in for.
It's a huge selling point for all those movies.
And it's like it's a selling point and a deterrent because I can see
Absolutely.
a lot of people going into The Witch, and I've talked to quite a few people about this because that is one of those films that I think we were at that kind of uh, learning experience where a lot of people thought The Witch was going to be one thing, and they went into that theater, and as soon as they walked out, they realized it was not. So it's like there are people I've talked to and they're like, "Oh, A24, that's that weird company." So it's like I think it's a thing where the people that are going to go see these movies in 2022 already know what to expect. Like when we were
You
sitting
would
in
hope
that theater
so.
from what'd you say?
I said you would hope so by this point.
Yeah. And it's like men going into that, I guess the ending to this kind of caught me off guard a little bit, but not really. You know what I mean? Like as it was happening, I'm like, nah, okay, this is pretty in line with what you would expect with A24. So I think like elevated horror is like almost a new subgenre of horror now because, it's like having your cake and eat it too. I can watch Halloween Kills and then I can go see Men. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. No, that's
it's
fair.
almost
That's a
like
fair point to make.
it's like, staying with your mom and seeing your dad every other weekend and on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
But so, it's like you kind of balance that, I feel. So it's here to
Yeah.
stay, I feel, for a while.
Okay. Well, that's at least some positive reinforcement. I guess maybe I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm pretty disappointed in this movie. So maybe I'm being a little bit more doom and gloom. I'm also very tired because, literally we went and saw this. Not only would I say that this movie disappointed me, but it really drained me. I just
Yeah.
kind of like I was really looking forward to going on what I've come to expect from Alex Garland, which is just this, you know, a very different concept with a little bit of this sci-fi tinge to it. I knew that this was going to lean a little heavier into horror than he's ever leaned into, and just the concept alone that you get from the trailer of all of these men being played by Rory Kinnear,
Kinnear. I,
Rory Kinnear. Uh,
maybe.
I
I
would
don't
say,
know.
yeah, I'm
That's
looking at it. It's Kinnear.
okay.
But yeah, just I mean, like, just that concept alone in that trailer sells it really well. And it's just like I think the first red flag for me coming into this though was when I'm thinking about that trailer and I see the guy falling out of the off the balcony and I see that shot in the trailer, I'm just like, so that's the opening of the movie, And it's like I kind of play that game in my head where I try to piece it together a little bit with most movies, but like I kind of pieced a little bit too much of what the triggering act was going to be
Yeah.
um, before I even saw the movie. And then, I kind of leaned into, all right, but we still have the stuff with Rory Kinnear here. Like, this is definitely something I was, I guess, just hoping for a little bit more, not even sci-fi, but something more here is at a foot. And the fact that, I guess, not to really spoil it, it just kind of turns into a glorified metaphor.
Yeah.
And they never address it. They never really like kind of do anything with it other than it's just there to pretty much just slap you in the face and say, this is the message of our movie, which we already got from, just a couple character interactions and everything. We were picking up perfectly fine. This just felt like we need to put this, you know, front and center and we need to keep hammering it in that this is the message of our movie. And it's just, I just couldn't get into it. I think it just was one of those things where I just was like, I just really feel like this is aimless and it's just not really hitting for me. And like, I know we haven't really dove into our A24 catalog at all with anything that we have coming up or anything that, we've done so far for our podcast, but we're going to get there. And I think that this can justify me. So if like you're seeing this, like, and you're just thinking that, oh, I just hate A24 movies. No, I absolutely love and will defend certain ones. Um, but this one for me, I'm just not going to sit here and defend it. I didn't really care for it.
Yeah. I mean, like A24, I think we both share that love where a lot of times if we see that logo, we'll be like, oh, okay, this is worth a watch at least just to check it
Exactly.
out.
Yeah. I'm going to watch it.
Um,
I'll get around
so
to it.
so like, usually A24 for us is a selling point.
Mhm.
And you're a big fan of Alex Garland. For me,
Mhm.
I'm in the middle here. Before we started recording this, I kind of told you my thoughts on this. Where, Annihilation, I think is a great film. I think there are a lot of great ideas in there. At the end there, he loses me. Um, I don't really resonate with that. And again, here, I think again he loses me toward the end. For this movie, like I was expecting something a little more grounded, at least with what we had at the very beginning here, because like you look at like Annihilation and just that concept at the very beginning, you're kind of very into a science fiction kind
Mhm.
of world. And, I think even that film, there was even you could even go farther into it, which I think he only touched on it a little bit. In this film, I was really expecting something a little more grounded throughout the entire film, and like I think at the very beginning here, he really builds it well. Honestly, as I was sitting there, and we're introduced to Rory Kinnear's one of the iterations of Rory Kinnear, Jeffrey.
Yeah,
That that dialogue of where I guess it's I don't know if it's Airbnb supposed to be or whatever. She's renting a little cottage, Jesse Buckley's character Harper. Um, and that dialogue that he gives and the way he kind of plays that character, I loved. I thought it was great.
he is
Um,
without a doubt. I would say him and Jesse Buckley. You had mentioned this before we started recording, also that they have to carry most of this movie, if not all of it, on their shoulders, and
yeah.
they're crushing. Like these two actors are killing it. Like I that is my I guess because I opened really on a low point here. I want to just highlight that so we can come back to it. That those two actors are absolutely destroying in this film. I think they are great. They're playing their
Yeah.
characters to a T, and just the range from Rory Kinnear, awesome. Loved it. I just wish
Um,
that the reason was there.
yes. And like and there are several iterations of him in this film, and it's like each one of them great. I think like he plays them not crazy different, but just different enough that you can distinguish like, okay, he's putting thought into each of these different characters. Great performance all around. I thought it was great. And honestly, maybe one of my biggest disappointments was after that initial scene, and then we're just going along with Jesse Buckley and the way everything's shot. In my head, I thought crossed my mind said this could be one of my favorite movies of the year. And I haven't seen that many, but I was enjoying it that much. There is a lot of story there that I think there's a lot that you can grab onto. Jesse Buckley, what she's dealing with, what she's struggling with, what brought her to this cottage, I think, and you're introduced in some flashbacks that don't seem so heavy-handed or anything. I think you're getting just enough to not be like, oh, this is a giant exposition or we're hand holding the audience. I think that was well done. And the ideas that she is struggling with, I thought was all so well done. And I'm like, and I think that's really what had me double down on. I'm in for a very grounded film here, and then we're not, and it kind of really goes off the wall. And I think that was probably one of my biggest disappointments and probably the biggest strike in this movie for me.
Yeah, I mean, I said it earlier. It just feels like we get to a point where the story itself feels aimless. I mean, we are just towards that third act, we just go on so many different routes and concepts and things, and I just don't think any of it really lands for me. I mean, like a great example, a mild spoiler. It doesn't spoil anything important to the story, really. There's a sequence where she's outside, it's nighttime, and you just see the emphasis brought onto the stars, but there's nothing there to really kind of guide me in any kind of way. Like I want to stress this because it's just like I'm down with A24 and them being vague, but this is just pretentiously overly vague. I
Yeah.
feel like in some of this, I feel like we sacrificed or we fronted pretentiousness in sacrifice of a story. And like that's what really sucks for me at the end of the day, because I agree with you 100% that these performances are great and that they, like I already said, they're fantastic. And like there are a lot of great ideas in here. I think a lot of really clever, unique. There's definitely a part of that third act that I have never seen, I have never thought of seeing, but I did, and it sticks with me, and it will probably stick with me. But I just don't think there's enough meat on the bone here for me to really feel like going back and revisiting it just to see some of that imagery. If I
Yeah.
want to, I will look that imagery up on YouTube and watch that clip again. Um, but it's just it doesn't do enough for me, and it is disappointing because I am a big Alex Garland fan. I think that what he's come out when he started directing here. Have you seen Ex Machina, by the way?
I saw it one time
Mm.
a couple years ago, and I honestly, admittedly, I don't remember as much about that one.
You should
Um,
revisit it because I think
yeah,
you'd really like it. I think it's his strongest of the three, for sure. But I think that that one would definitely give you a solid, like, you could really see what he's capable of when he's well rounded.
yeah, and I remember
Because
bullet points of it, but not the full on film.
Yeah, because I absolutely love Annihilation, but I'll be the first to admit that that has a lot of broad concepts that you really have to pay attention. You really have to watch a lot of it. And I think one of the beautiful things that Alex Garland tends to do, and he's done a lot with his last film and especially this film. And I'll just use I don't know the song off the top of my head. I had saved it here, but one of the points I want to make here is that he's so meticulous in how he structures things that the song in Annihilation, um, is it helplessly, hopingly helpless or something by Crosley, Stills and Nash. Wonderful song. It's helplessly hoping, but like the lyrics of that song reflect the story, her interpersonal relationships, her relationship with her husband, her infidelity. You know, it all reflects in that song. It's so purposeful. And you know me and how we write, that I tend to select music that I feel really fits the overall tone and vibe of a scene, and he does that perfectly. So it's one of
Yeah,
those things where it's just like I respect that because I relate to it, and the fact that he was able to take a song like that and really weave his movie Annihilation around it, even to some of
yeah,
the lyrics to an extent, beautiful. Like I think that is purely what we can do in cinema, because everybody talks about how like in cinema there's only so many stories you can really tell at the end of the day before you're telling an unoriginal story. um I think that a big part of what our medium is doing today, especially with these like A24 and neon pictures, is that they're taking old concepts and old vibes and old feelings. Like just look at X, which recently came out, which we'll cover at some point on the show, I'm sure. But like that very much is pulling a lot of stuff from 70s slasher films, and I think
yeah,
it does it a lot. I think that does it really well. So it's like the fact that we can do that and just kind of mold all these things together to make these fresh takes on stories is great. And I think that Alex Garland is one of the best at doing it. But this movie, again, I just feel like there wasn't enough meat on the bone for me to really get on board. I just had a hard time really letting myself go with it and letting it go. Every time I wanted to just say, fuck it, let him take you on the journey, there would be something in here that makes me roll my eyes. Like, I
yeah,
think one sequence in particular, I was definitely laughing out loud in the theater because it was just like it could have been creepy. It could have been really well done, but at that point there's just no context at whatsoever to anything that's going on for it to really be creepy for me.
yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about when uh the windows and everything when she's on the phone.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
yeah,
want to
yeah,
spoil it. Yeah.
yeah. And
It just felt pretentious for the sake of being pretentious.
yeah,
And nothing happens with that.
yeah,
And
it's
it
just kind
dead
of
end.
there, and it's
Mhm.
like, I guess, what kind of reaction were you expecting, um, for that, I guess for that scene layout. I don't know if you paid attention, but I mean, we were in a theater. It wasn't by any means a packed theater, but there were people there, and I've heard a few snickers throughout that entire um the entire runtime of the film. There were certain instances where people would, chuckle a little bit, and I don't know necessarily if he was after that type of reaction, but some of those things where it's like, if you're writing and you're not really thinking, oh well, if someone's seeing this with a large group of people, sometimes that's where you have to walk that fine line between like avant-garde horror, and it's gonna fall into comedy if people aren't feeling it, and there are some instances in here where there was some, in our theater there was some laughter, because I don't
Yeah.
think it necessarily hit.
Yeah, and I
And
mean like go ahead.
Uh, no, you go and finish because I was gonna go into something else completely.
Okay, cuz I was going to say even like standing up and just like looking around at everybody, there was a gentleman behind us. We just kind of locked eyes for a moment as I was just kind of openly expressing my distaste for the film. And you could just see like we kind of had that moment of just like, yeah, that was fucking dumb. Like
Yeah,
kind of look like it's just like, and it's so upsetting and disappointing. And like it's weird being on this side of it because like I can think back to when The Witch came out. I went with a bunch of friends. I had hyped it all up and said, everybody says this movie's going to be fucking terrifying. I went and saw it. I absolutely adored it. And was the only person I think walking out of that theater in a decently packed theater because everybody was just kind of talking. It was one of those things where the community in that theater was just there, which really just shows you the power of Robert Eggers at that point, even though I don't think that he got that respect from that audience that
Yeah,
he deserved. Because I swear to God, I was the only person that walked out talking to total strangers in my group and just saying, I enjoyed that movie. I thought that was phenomenal. And everybody else, like, really? That was stupid. Like, that was boring and stuff like this. And it's just like, God, I can imagine maybe one person in our theater liked it, maybe a few, but like, it just felt you could tell the energy wasn't there. You could tell
yeah.
like it was not where it should be.
And that's where you kind of go with where I was talking about earlier, where it can be a deterrent, that A24 logo, where it's like, yeah, I think The Witch, when you went and saw that, probably had a general audience where, you know, a lot of the people that we saw in the theater today, I was like, you can look at it and be like, you can size them up and be like, yeah, this isn't their first rodeo. You know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah,
They're
they
here.
they take the A24 pill whenever it's offered at that point. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they
So
they
it's
they
like, dude.
definitely were our kind of crowd.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, this is the audience you're playing to, and if it doesn't hit, there might be something wrong here. But
Yeah.
with like Alex Garland, for me, I think uh there's always something like, as you were talking about elevated horror, and is it going to run its course because of or do you just want a basic slash or something? In Alex Garland, for me, I think he tries to mix the two to a certain degree, where it's like Annihilation for me was like, where I said he didn't lean into it enough for me, where um you're looking at that film and I was like, okay, this is really good. And then I don't think he went as far as he could go. And then by the end of it, like, the ending to that film is also a little wild, but it fits more in tone with that actual film than the ending of Men does, where it's like, I guess Alex Garland for me it's like I'm enjoying a really good meal and I'm always like, there's something missing here. It it's a good meal, it's not a great meal. It's always something missing with him. And Annihilation was closer to a great meal than Men was at all. You know what I mean? This was
Mhm.
just again, if he would have kept with the tone that he had in the first two acts of this film, I think this could have been a very enjoyable movie. But he really went off the wall with this one, and that ending didn't hit at all. And I think it caught a lot of people off guard. Where it's like, you go through that and you look at like the statue stuff like that, you're like, okay, this does make sense. But it's not like Midsummer, um, it where they hint at everything. Where do you remember on they have the
Oh,
basic
the
layout of,
tapestry and everything at the
yeah,
beginning. Yeah,
and it's
no,
like, that is like perfect right there. It's in front of you. Whereas this one was not as in plain view, where it's still people know to look at that stuff now. Like, we've been trained to look at everything, because in some way it's going to tell you some part of the story. You have to pay attention to everything. You can't be looking at your phone. You can't be doing any of that. So it's like, to pay attention as many times as they focus on that statue, to pay attention to it. And even what the statue is of, but when it comes to fruition, you still are not prepared for that. And there was a lot of laughter when that had happened. It was like, almost like, is this really happening right now? And I don't think the close-ups did it any favors, because it was almost like, okay, this isn't really hitting for anyone. At least in the theater, it did not.
yeah, I would say it didn't really hit for our audience at all. I would say like I think the vibe in general was that this was a miss. And it's just it's strange. It is just strange to see like this is what we turned out. Like I think my biggest sentiment here is that this movie could have used a little more time. I
Yeah.
think in the oven a little bit, like not necessarily from a production standpoint or even a performance standpoint. Those were all on point. Those were all hundreds, but just conceptually, he needed to spend a little more time on this and really figure out what message am I trying to portray here, and just like what am I, what do I want people to walk away from this film feeling and thinking. And it just didn't work for me. So I'm gonna
Yeah.
say Men. I'm not gonna sit here and recommend Men to anybody. I think that if you have an interest in this movie and you've heard us talk about it and you've seen some of the other stuff and you genuinely do want to check it out, I encourage you to, just because I think one of the highest things I can say respectfully, because I don't really like to sit here and just like bash something like this so hard, because I do respect Alex Garland as a filmmaker and I respect A24 as a company, because they let this movie come out. And this is a very weird movie. This third act is unlike anything I've ever seen. It doesn't land because I don't think it's earned, but I still want to say that like I respect that A24 again is just showing us they are not afraid to take risks and take chances. And they did. It didn't pay off for me, but thank you for doing it, because it's like it's nice to see that, even something so off the wall as this film can get put out there.
Yeah.
Um, and like I guess I'm not going to sit here and recommend it, but if you have an interest in it, if you know what you're to expect with A24 films, you know what to expect with Alex Garland, check it out. I mean, if that's what you want to do, I'm not sitting here saying you shouldn't. I want people to support this film if they're interested in it, but for me, it's a one and done. I
Yeah.
think I think I'm good. I'm set. This will be one that I will not be picking up on Blu-ray or 4K.
And sitting here thinking back on this movie, there's a lot of positives in this film. You can tell that they handled it with, I guess you would say, they really wanted to make a go of this movie. Where it was like I think the cinematography is very well done. I think it's a beautiful film.
Hmm.
The acting is top notch. I mean, Rory Kinnear in this, you he's on another level. I
He's on
can't
point.
really wait to see what's next for him.
Hmm.
I don't know if he was in anything else prior to this, at least not that I
He's
had
in the James
recalled.
Bond movies.
Okay, I
The
didn't.
most recent Daniel Craig ones. You're not a fan of those? Yeah.
I think I'm not a James Bond fan in general, and I
Okay.
think maybe I've seen uh, the first one with the Daniel Craig first one. I
Quantum
don't know what that
Solace,
one is.
baby.
So I think maybe I've seen that one, but if I did, it was probably like 5 years ago. So I didn't recognize him from anything. I think he's got a very lengthy career ahead of him, though. From what he was
Hmm.
able to do in this film, I think there's a lot of great storytelling in this. Again, the third act, though, really goes off the rails a bit. I think there was a better way, maybe a more grounded way to do it. But this film is not for me. But I think anyone who is an A24 fan, it's a toss up. You might like it, you might hate it. So it may sound weird, but I would say I would recommend people at least checking it out once. I'm not gonna say that you're gonna love it and that you're gonna own it, but I think it's worth a watch just for the first two acts alone.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a mixed bag. I guess from both of us, you could say it's leaning a little bit more negatively, but again, just know what you're getting into when it comes to this movie. Just know that it's unconventional. Even for us, it's deeply unconventional, and it does need to be seen with caution. I guess just know exactly what you're getting into.
It's an
Uh,
interesting film for certain.
yeah. Absolutely. Like that's one thing you can't deny is that it is an interesting movie, because
It's very
I
bold
didn't see
in its
I did not
take.
see yeah, I did not see that third act going that way
No, I don't
at
think
all.
anyone would call it. So, that's what I'm intrigued as well as I would love to see, especially hardcore A24 fans, go see it and see if it catches them off guard. You know, because
Mhm.
again, we're pretty seasoned in this, and it still got us. So I'm curious to see what the overall consensus would be for this.
And like I checked out a couple of reviews after we saw it, and I mean, people seem to be straying relatively positive towards it. I haven't seen too many negatives. There was one review from somebody I've never seen before. I don't remember their name, but you know, if they start popping up, I'll definitely give them a shout out more. But like, I definitely agreed with her. I think that we had the same uh kind of feelings going in and out of it. Just kind of like the expectations were there. 'Cause she's a big Alex Garland fan, but then we just kind of had the same. It felt I felt validated, I guess I should say, because I saw a
Yeah,
couple where I was like, really, like you liked it that much? But I mean, to each
yeah,
their own. The
yeah.
cinema and everything is it's its own beast. I mean, it's whatever you like. So,
Different tastes. I mean, some people are just after something completely different, which Alex Garland does give you in that third
mm,
act. Um, Not for me personally, but you know, I think there are people out there that really do enjoy it.
100%. Well, guys, that about wraps up our review for Men. So proceed with caution. But if you want to see more from us, check us out on our YouTube channel here. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and anywhere else where you can find your podcasts. You'll also find us on Twitter. It's our main social media hub. We are always on there chit chatting. Luke has been getting a lot of traction for us on there. You'll find him on there primarily. I'll chime in every once in a while, but you can follow us at Splattercast Pod if you want to just let us know how we're doing. We're always taking criticisms. We want to know what we can do to get better at this. I think each episode, each review, each everything is a learning experience, and we hope to improve it and make this a quality show for everybody. But I guess that about wraps it up for me. You got anything for him, Luke?
Nothing at all. You pretty much covered it there, buddy.
I'm getting good at it. I'm really hitting the stride, I think, with the outro. But
Getting in
yeah.
that mode.
Anyway, I'm Dylan Newell,
And I'm Luke Janesco.
and remember, we all go a little mad sometimes.